For the vast majority of people, grammar studies just might be the single most boring academic investigation to take up. When I was in elementary school, exposed for the first time to lessons in grammar, I developed a fierce loathing for studies of the language I was already speaking. I felt that I had already achieved a sufficient mastery over my native tongue and that any deeper analysis of it wasn't really necessary. Maybe, too, it was how the subject of grammar was delivered by Mrs. Kirk. Her angelic smile too often dazzled my eyes, and so I couldn't fully focus on the particulars of the lessons and was therefore mystified by quizzes and exams at testing my knowledge of the language. In lectures, I often wondered, what was she trying to tell us about infinitives being split by modifiers or elliptical clauses dangling, ineffectively modifying what they ought to but aren't? Why was the past tense plural form of was to serve as the subjunctive mood for expressing wishes or hypotheticals? Looking back over those years of working hard to structure my own thoughts and imagination in words, it has become increasingly easy to see how God is at work in all things, especially when we come to a conscious awareness of the awe-inspiring wonder of the structuring of existence itself. Maybe one of the most remarkable aspects of being human is being able to apprehend the beauty in the structure and design of the material world. The symmetry and complexity of these structures is simply too astonishing, I would argue, to leave to mere time and chance, especially if we consider how the parts work to form the whole of a given system. Consider for a moment the constellations of the Milky Way galaxy alone, the predictable movements of planets in the solar system, the precise tilt of the Earth on its axis that makes seasons move by, the moon in its relation to tides, the hydrologic cycle, and the law of the conservation of mass, whereby nothing can be created nor destroyed, but merely rearranged or transformed from one state of matter to another. Consider, too, the human body, the profound, complex structure and design of the eye to behold our surroundings, the inner ear and its connection to balance, the glandular discharges of pheromones that attract us to others or repel us, the apparent design of the mind to make sense of the unspoken signals sent unintentionally by others, warning our guts of potential danger, the structure of the brain to process all of the incoming sensory data gives us a recognizable and coherent impression of the data, to see the designs of powerful men intent to dispossess the masses of their natural rights as human beings to reproduce their lives. Given the utter dominance of structure and design infused in the natural physical world and the conceptual worlds of our minds, it is vital that we see and understand the structuring of these worlds so that, as human beings, as citizens of nations, as members of communities, tribes, and families, we can recognize and address the threats posed to the things we cherish most. Language, the most important social, psychological, neurological, physiological, and cognitive construction of humanity, is the very foundation upon which all man-made structures arise. Language is the basis of all our capacities to engage in economic transactions, to construct the social and political world, the center of all our negotiations for power and prestige and position for access to members of the opposite sex, the pivotal manufacturing center from which all the products of our imagination and romantic encounters are born. If language is the unique property of cognition that elevates humans just above the animals of the kingdom and just below the angels, why are we so often misunderstood or not completely understood? This question begs the obvious follow-up. How then can we elevate our awareness of what we mean as speakers and writers who desire to be understood? What can we do to increase our own conscious awareness of the precision and clarity of the messages we intend to communicate, but so often fail to? Since we are already experts in the particular language variety we speak, in whatever speech community we were born and raised, there is another aspect of written and spoken expression that often escapes our attention. It is the metalinguistic lexicon, the language we use to talk about language. It is jargon for the student of language. Consider for a moment the profoundly sinister but clever new products coming into the market designed to dispossess the masses of their natural human rights to the world's resources. The so-called metaverse is the matrix designed to entice you and me to ignore the financialization and the commodification of the entire world, its natural resources, and its huge capacity of human capital markets. The jargon of this system of dispossession obscures and conceals the reality of what's really going on. Because we don't fully understand the meaning of this jargon, we remain ignorant of the programs of dispossession. Given the power of language to conceal the intent behind the construction of the metaverse, what better way to distract the masses from attending to the objective world than to lure all unsuspecting consumers through clever words into a mediated world of digital simulations where we, as embodied subjects, become objects in some tech guru's twisted fantasy for humanity. The very idea of the natural human being, born of a female human mother, experiencing subjective reality is, at present, morphing into the preeminent idea of a digital simulation of reality. So this very real big tech threat to human sovereignty and agency, to human freedom and dignity and human rights is unfolding right before us right now. If language is the foundation of meaning-making, the very center of this foundation is the subject and the verb. If we want to understand the difference between truth and deception, we must isolate and assess the subject and the verb. If we want to be understood and want to be more consciously aware of what we are saying in speech and writing, we must raise our conscious awareness of what the subjects are and the verbs. What specific words are chosen as subjects and what words are chosen as the verbs. How key is the subject and verb? Consider briefly the unassuming power in these two aspects of a declarative sentence. In the narrative of the burning bush, Moses attempts to decline the job offer given to him by the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And from the sound of it, the job seems impossible to complete. Moses is instructed to confront Pharaoh and demand that the Israelites be released from bondage. Moses, however, is unsure anyone in Egypt will obey his declaration, so he asks, by whose authority can he, a lowly shepherd, issue such a command? He wants to know the name of the one who's got his back. God reveals to Moses one aspect of his personhood. I am the one who is and who will be. Grammatically, this is fascinating, for we find that God is simultaneously subject and verb, the existing, self-existent I am, the subject of all seen and unseen ontological realities. He is also simultaneously past, present, and future. To Pharaoh, you shall say, Yahweh, the God of my ancestors, has sent me. Moses' response to the invitation to make the demands of Yahweh known to Pharaoh is humorous. Moses admits that his language skills are not up to the task, and we soon find, thinks his brother is better suited for the job. The student of language would immediately see that the interaction between man and his maker in this story is another proof for the power of language to move hearts and minds. If God is the very source of all power, and if God, therefore, speaks, the power of his word, Yeshua, moves in the creative act from thought to the state of being. If therefore the human being is made in the image of God, we are each subjects, and we wield our own power to move mountains with our words. We need only faith the size of a mustard seed to realize how we take hold of that power. We are each animated by the Word of God, who breathed and gave us life. Our Father, who art in heaven, has also given us mouths and songs to produce praise for his holy name. Even the rocks would cry out should the people remain silent, Jesus reminded the religious leaders upon his entry into Jerusalem for the Passover festival. From start to finish, the entire biblical canon attests to the power of Yeshua to speak and all the elements obey. Indeed, all creation bears the signs of the Creator's wise designs for the universe. In Psalm 68:4, we see, quote, "Sing to God, sing praises to his name, extol him who rides on the clouds by his name, Yah, and rejoice before him." If the universe and its manifold resources and sources of energy reflect the thoughts of Yah, let us take time to parse the name of him who deserves all of our thanks and praise. In Genesis 17:5, we find the figure Abram in communion with his Maker. Abram had resolved in his heart to walk each day before the face of God, to hide nothing from Yah. Here we find the structure of Abram's life, which he chose, as the effect of the structure of his own heart. So moved by Abram's heart to be in daily contact with him, God gave Abram a new name. How wonderful a blessing it must be for those whom God calls by name. We also find Yah adding a new vowel sound, both to Abram's name and to his wife's. Abraham and Sarah thus receive Yah's blessing that they will be the parents of many nations. Their own names become daily reminders that they live and move by the very breath of God. Yeshua says, "My sheep know me, and I call them by name." If he knows you, you will hear his call. Let us be sure in this day and age, when wolves walk among us in sheep's clothing, that we hear the voice of our Good Shepherd, leading us along the narrow path to the new kingdom that he is bringing to the earth. Let us open our eyes and ears to see and hear more clearly how his kingdom is coming now, and how we, through obedience to his call, are paving the way for his appearance. And let us pray each day that every single structure of our lives is made ready to receive the groom who is coming soon for his bride.